You know comprehensible input is the key to language learning, but what exactly counts as comprehensible when you're an absolute beginner? That right there is the question that keeps most language learners stuck before they even start. Hey everyone, Spencer here. So you've done your research on language acquisition. You know all about Stephen Krashen's hypotheses and theories. And you now understand that comprehensible input is one of the most direct paths to conversational fluency. But now you're stuck with this maddening practical question. What exactly counts as comprehensible input for me right now as a complete beginner? You try watching a YouTube video in your target language and maybe understand like 2% of what's being said. Is that comprehensible input? Probably not, right? So you find a beginner lesson that's painfully slow and artificial. Hello, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. And you? Now, that sort of conversation is definitely comprehensible to most people, but it's too boring, too slow, and completely unnatural. In the real world, we all know that no one actually speaks like that. So you're caught in this impossible situation. Everything real feels too difficult to be comprehensible, but everything comprehensible feels too artificial to be useful. We can call this the comprehensible input paradox, and it explains why most motivated language learners like yourself get stuck before they even get started. Let me break down why this is such a massive problem for language learners. First, you waste precious time that could be used on actual learning. You hop from app to app, YouTube video to YouTube video, podcast to podcast, searching and searching, but never actually committing. Second is that you develop this perfectionist-like mindset that actually works against you. You think to yourself, if I can't understand everything, I must not be ready for this content yet. So you retreat back to that baby-level material that doesn't challenge you at all, and so you see no progress. And third, most devastating of them all, you completely misunderstand how the brain actually acquires a language. But here's the truth most language learning courses leave out. Your brain is actually capable of learning from content that seems mostly incomprehensible to you. And that alone changes everything about how you should approach learning a new language. Think about it. How do babies learn their first language? They're surrounded by adult-level speech, native-level speech at day one. And yet somehow, without textbooks, without classrooms, and without grammar rules, even without knowing the words at all, or what words even are, they end up figuring it out. The neuroscience on this is of course still evolving, and I'm not a neuroscientist. We cannot definitively state at what point something becomes comprehensible to any given human brain. Our scientific understanding on this matter and other matters continuously grows and often contradicts what we thought we knew before. But what it seems like we're coming to know is this. We are massively underestimating our brain's pattern recognition abilities and its ability to extract meaning from what we previously thought was incomprehensible information. In other words, what we used to think was incomprehensible input might be a lot more comprehensible than we thought. So here's what I've discovered works instead. Adopt what practitioners of Zen Buddhism call the beginner's mind. Instead of obsessing over everything, actually embrace not knowing. Even understanding just 5% of something really lays the foundation for much more future learning. The solution isn't finding perfectly comprehensible input. That's exactly 10% of what you don't know and 90% of what you do. To be honest, that's kind of an unrealistic target, because how are we ever supposed to quantify exactly what percentage we understand and what percentage we don't? Instead, the solution might be just changing your approach to the content that's available to you right now. Here's what most people miss. Words aren't actually the only important element in comprehension. Your brain is a natural pattern recognition machine. Over time, it associates visual and gestural cues with words and sounds. Now, this repeated association process is literally how we acquire a language. So while I've been learning Mandarin, there's been many times where I've been watching content that I only maybe understand 10 to 20% of the actual words. But I was able to follow what was being said either through the motions, the gestures, the emotional tone, so on and so forth. And here's the secret that most language learning apps probably won't tell you. This process, although seemingly arduous at first, is actually much more effective than memorizing individual words or individual grammar rules. So here is your practical game plan if you're an absolute beginner in a new language using comprehensible input. Step 1. Start by focusing on the most common words that you're likely to encounter. I personally recommend using Anki or some other spaced repetition system if you prefer to intentionally drill the 1,000 most popular words in your target language. For those of you who are already inside of the Fluency Formula community, you are already well aware of how I specifically do this. Now, this will give you approximately 75% by volume of any word that you're likely to encounter in regular speech. A pretty good foundation, if you ask me. Step 2. While you're building that vocabulary foundation, go to YouTube and in the search bar, search comprehensible, insert your target language, and then write absolute beginner. Now, after you find this content, watch it repeatedly. Don't worry about not understanding everything. Your brain is unconsciously picking up the patterns of the language, even if you don't seem to be aware that it is. Step 3. Immerse yourself daily in the language. This was key to my success so far in Mandarin. I committed to a few hours every single day without exception. Step 4. Connect words in your target language to images and concepts instead of translating them into English. I talk about how to do this inside of the Fluency Formula community, but honestly, this was an absolute game changer for me. If you're not inside of the community yet, let me give you a quick rundown of how to do it. Instead of thinking apple, then 苹果. Try to connect the concept of an apple directly to 苹果 in your mind. Don't stress, this is a natural result that comes after large amounts of immersion. Let me share a quick hack that I think most language learners probably miss. It is my personal belief that you can actually progress to intermediate level content much quicker than you think. After a few weeks of exposure to beginner level content, and after you've acquired your first 1,000 or so words, try incorporating some low intermediate level stuff. Yes, your comprehension, and so your ego, might drop temporarily, but your brain adapts surprisingly quickly, in my experience. On my Mandarin learning journey, I actually started listening to an intermediate level podcast about language learning pretty quick into the process. I didn't understand most of the words, but the context made it relatively comprehensible to me. And frankly, super comprehensible or not, just because I enjoyed the podcast, I just kept listening. Shout out to you, Dashu Mandarin. The key seems to be finding content that you genuinely enjoy. Because science has shown us repeatedly that when you enjoy what you're doing, you pay more attention and learning becomes easier and easier with less friction. And when there's less friction to your learning, you retain more information. It is my view personally, and probably the view of some others, that we overestimate and we put too much value in content needing to be perfectly comprehensible. And instead we put too little value and we underestimate our brain's ability to derive meaningful messages simply from content, whether or not we understand every single word or even very few of the words. So if you're still unsure as to what counts as comprehensible content that you should be using to help you get conversational as quickly as possible, I've actually put together a free resource to help you out. If you're interested, you can check the link in the description. Like I said, it's completely free and it'll help you take some of the principles that I mentioned today and put them into immediate action. It turns out that languages aren't as hard as you make them out to be. The real challenge isn't the language itself, it's just our approach to acquiring that language. Stop worrying so much about finding the perfect comprehensible content for your immersion and just spend more time with the language in general. If you maintain a positive attitude towards learning a language and continue to spend time with that language, you will progress. And that is a guarantee. Now, while a lot of what I've said today has been my opinion, let me summarize in a nutshell kind of what we've gone over. If your input is highly comprehensible to you, you're picking up patterns of the language very efficiently. But on the other hand, if it's not all that comprehensible to you, the potential of new patterns that you encounter is much higher, which itself is a massive advantage. In the end, we likely want to combine both extremes on our language acquisition journey, because often what you watch is dictated by the content that finds you. The real enemy, in my view, isn't more or less comprehensible. It's being distracted by spending time overthinking the entire process. For a pattern recognition machine like your brain, what matters, again, is that you're spending time with the language and trusting your brain's natural ability to figure things out. While you're trusting your brain and allowing it to figure things out, if you want to speed up your process a little bit, then click the video right here where I show you the 8 things that I did to learn languages way faster than most people think is possible. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.